You are listening to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss our RC adventures.
Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss the ups and downs of the new RC Flyer. Join your hosts, Michael and Jay, as they take flight at the park. Now on with the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast. I'm Michael from Arizona. With me always are my good friends,
Jay from the hills of Texas,
and Shannon G in Mesa AZ.
And we would like to welcome you to the Park Flyer Podcast. We are coming to you from all over the place, but Shannon and I are in Arizona and Jay down in Texas. We appreciate your patronage wherever you are in the world. We'd like for you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit that thumbs up button. That does help our channel grow. We are always looking for new subscribers as well, so take that opportunity. Hey, this week we got a couple of things. I was able to go out and fly at the club, which was kind of good. We had a club meeting, and we found out, in case Shannon didn't know, here a while back our Ramada got torn down and yours got damaged, right? So we just got all the permitting to put ours back up. So hopefully by the end of this month or middle of next month, we'll have a new Ramada. It's taller, bigger, and we're all excited about it. So I was able to go out to the club meeting, and then we did some flying afterwards. And I had Tony Quist came by and complimented me on flying my little OV10, and he said he really enjoyed the podcast. And so we'd like to shout out to Tony. Thank you very much for listening to us and giving us a thumbs up. So we appreciate it. Tony's a great guy if you already know him, and he attends a lot of events, so it's always fun to be around Tony. Well, it was he's one of those that kind of has got his finger on the pulse. So to get the kudos from Tony, I felt really good about that. So I was like, hey, thanks a lot. So I was happy all day. So anyway, for us, it's really hot right now. During the summer here in Arizona. I think it was 112 yesterday. So the temperatures are still climbing. We're just coming in July, August. Those are the hottest months here in Arizona, which kind of brings us to our topic for today. And I kind of laid the groundwork with the both of you. But as many of you know, I'm not in the city. I live kind of out in the country, and I have acreage. And so one of the things that you have to worry about in the summertime in the desert is fire. We've had in the past several years that I've lived up here, we've had fires. None of them have really gotten within about 3 miles of the house. And, usually the way the wind's blowing, we're really not affected. However, this year's been a little bit different. And it's kind of what I want to talk a little bit about because, I'll explain it a little bit ago. But what happens is that we had a fairly large fire, burned almost 14,000 acres, and it was only about 2.5 miles from the house. Now, that doesn't really sound very close, but when you're talking about 14,000 acres surrounding your property, that's a lot of area. Fortunately for us, we have here in Arizona the fire, fighters, aircraft firefighters that come in and they fly a big DC-10 or these little jump planes, and they come in and they lay all the product down and try to suppress the fire. And I think they call them fire jumpers or smoke jumpers. So anyway, it was earlier last month, I think, we had a fairly large fire. It got started basically, for lack of a better term, not naturally. Someone did start the fire. It was human related. And occasionally, I've seen fires in Arizona that basically lightning will strike and it will start a fire on the ground. And then there's really not much you can do about that. But, individuals need to be cautious about it. And the reason I bring this topic up is because last week there was a house in my neighborhood that was 2 blocks over. And the guy was welding on his fence. And within 5 minutes of a spark flying off, half of the block where he lives was on fire. And it was so close to my house that, my wife and I were fairly nervous. Now, the good news is the wind was blowing opposite the direction of my home. But, it was close enough that had the wind changed directions, it could have affected me. And it's kind of the first time. Normally I look out, I go, okay, yeah, the fire's far enough away. It's probably not really going to affect me. And I don't really focus in on it because I know that they're taking care of it. But this one was literally 2 blocks away. And so I jumped on the tractor and I went down there and I was, helping them clear the brush and getting it all out till the fire department kind of came in there and kicked us all out. And they did get it out. There was no, homes damaged or anything, but there was significant land damage with this fire. So it made me this year a little more cognizant of my property. And so I actually, had someone do some fire mitigation and come out and clear up the property from all the weeds and the rain and all that stuff. And, my little tractor was able to do some, but it wasn't able to get as much as this guy was able to get with a bigger piece of equipment. Well, so last Sunday we were sitting in the living room, we were looking outside, and I told my wife, "Oh no, there's another fire." And this fire was fairly close as well, right? So I mean, we could see the big plume of smoke right off our backyard, and we have an observation deck. We went up there, and it had obviously just started, and I was shocked at how fast that fire grew. It grew from a little wisp of smoke to these huge, massive columns. Because the desert right now is pretty, pretty dry, and it's a big tinderbox of. We had a lot of rain in the fall, and it created a bunch of weeds and stuff that are now dead in the summertime, and they burn really quickly. But it was very cool to sit up on the deck, even though it was 100 degrees outside, and watch the DC-10 come in and start laying all the product. And of course, the fire is growing because the wind is howling up here, and it's moving. It's not really moving towards us; it's moving across. So my house faces north or east and west, and it was moving kind of northeast. So it was moving away from us, but the wind was kind of whipping. All of a sudden, all of the airplanes disappeared. And I was like, what the heck? And I thought for sure they went back just to refuel. But they have a pretty good system where, some of the airplanes come in and they drop a load while the other guys, filling it back up. And then they'll get back in. And it's this kind of this rotation thing. Well, my wife was on our, web board that we have
Facebook.
for this.
She was on the Facebook.
Yeah, the Facebook page that it has for our neighborhood. And we were informed that the fire retardant operation had been suspended, mainly because there were individuals flying DJI drones over the area. And that kind of brings us to our topic, because I am 100% in favor of everybody being able to fly where they want to fly, do what they want to do. The government regulation, it seems overbearing to me, that you have to have an ID and that you can't fly where you want to fly. I am unfortunately have a foot in the real aviation world and the RC world. So I kind of I'm on the fence for both, but I've always been supportive of both full scale aviation and RC aviation. And I have a lot of money tied up in RC aviation. And so I don't want to be restricted, for just one little area. But this to me, affected me because the fire is burning, and all it would take is for the wind to change direction, and now it's coming towards my residence. I kind of honestly got a little perturbed that there would be people doing this, right? And so, now this kind of affects me personally, and so honestly, I was a little perturbed that these guys were out there flying it. And it kind of gave me this secondary thought of, well, wait a second, this guy really is putting me and my livelihood, my home and everything at risk. And yet they're out there trying to get their YouTube channel or videos or whatever it is that they're trying to do. So I had a little bit of a different, thought when I was sitting there watching all the airplanes disappear and thinking to myself, if this wind shifts, we're in big trouble, And at that particular time, my land wasn't cleared as it is today, but we definitely had someone come out and do that for that specific reason, so that I wouldn't have anything on the property that would put my home at risk. Talked a little bit to Jay about it on my way home from work, and we kind of thought it would be a good podcast. But I mean, what are your guys' thoughts about it? Because, like I said, I'm all for the freedom, but at the same time, this is very risky, and it kind of irritates me.
It's kind of like one of those things, Mike. It's common sense isn't very common,
Yeah.
for most people. Or, as I like to say, when I was back in the Air Force, when you make something idiot proof, they always come along with a better idiot, right?
Mhm.
So, you know, some people don't look at the situation and realize, oh, well, I'm just putting the drone up. It'd be really cool if I get footage, or maybe I could sell it to the news. That's one thing. But, sometimes your unintended consequences or intentions,
Mhm.
impact a lot of people, and you may not think about it, right?
Right.
Because the person who's putting it up may not realize that they're going to shut down the air flights just because you have a drone up. Now, like if it was me and I was in charge of it, I think my the DC-3 or 10 can go through a, Maverick drone pretty good. I figure we can ingest a couple of those and not have to worry about it.
Right.
If I'm trying to stop life property, and to being destroyed, I'm not worried about an occasional drone that I may hit. And once
Mhm.
again, statistics are on your side, you know, of not hitting one. But then again, I have a little different idea on risk and stuff than other people. Where, once again, oh my gosh, there's a mosquito up, a guy's holding a pole up with a camera. Oh my god, we can't fly. That's it. We're shut everything down. I mean, I'm being over dramatic, but I'm just kind of
Sure,
putting
I
it out
understand what
there.
you're saying.
Sometimes how those things happen.
Right.
So, you know, I think sometimes for people, they just don't realize what they're doing and how it's because most people would think, why would you stop flying, or stop the firefighting because I have a drone up? I'm flying at 50 feet. I
Mhm.
could get it out of the way, if it comes anywhere near me. Two, if it comes anywhere near me and they drop the water on it or the retardant on it, the drone's out of there, right? So
Oh, yeah.
I kind of get it. It's not like you're flying a beluga whale, type of thing.
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. Well, I think it's a little bit of education. With the RC pilots, or just not RC pilots, right? There's a difference between RC pilots and then the guy who just has a drone and he takes it up every once in a while. He doesn't really know anything about anything, right? He hasn't registered his drone. He hasn't done nothing. He just doesn't know. He's just ignorant. Oh, I got it for a birthday gift. I take it up on the 4th of July, take a picture of the picnic, and then I land it, and I put it away till next year, right?
Mhm.
It's that guy, right, who just doesn't know or he hasn't been educated. Oh, there's a fire near my house. I'm gonna go take some pictures of it. That's a once in a lifetime thing, right? I'm gonna go take some pictures of it. Takes it up, but doesn't realize that operations are going to get shut down over this, right? He has no clue. I don't think anybody has malice like, oh, I'm going to shut down the operations and stop the fire, from spreading.
Let me put this out there too, because I'm going back and sitting on the porch or sitting on the observation deck and having my wife tell me, yeah, they just canceled the firefighting operation because of these. The first thing that came to my mind is where I live. I can tell you all the time that there are people that come out here way out because I live way north of the metroplex, and they fly in the desert, right? So there's
Mhm.
several guys, and I know some of them that fly, and they put their FPV on, and then they go out and they fly all over, and they take pictures of cactus or do whatever, and it's kind of cool, and I'm all for it. If you guys want to go do it, and they've got a lot of money tied up in those as well. But what if they were flying and they went out to Bartlett Dam, and they looked at the dam and flew down the river, and then on the way back the wind kicked up, caused the drone to crash, and the battery sparked the fire, and now the other guys that are flying with them are looking for where his drone went down, right? I mean, I would think that they would be like, "Oh crap,
Right.
there's a fire
Right.
going." But we need to find where the drone is, because obviously the police or the firefighters are going to go out there and they're going to start looking. Now, these are the things that are running through my head. I cannot verify or guarantee you that that's what started the fire. I don't know. I haven't gotten any information on that, and even the firefighters haven't put out, as far as I know right now, what started that particular fire. But it just got me thinking, that there are guys, and even us. I mean, Jay and I have talked
Yeah.
about it,
Well,
even
didn't you had an
Shannon.
incident at your club? Yeah. Yeah.
Correct.
You had an
Yeah, we
irresponsible
did.
guy who was out there doing some. Yeah.
And there was a 5,000 milliamp EDF that went in and caused almost 1,200 or 1,300 acres to go up in smoke. So I think for us, this particular episode, it's interesting to hear your take on it, because I am always so pro, you know, the RC side, and this was the first time, I think, in my history that I saw how it would affect my personal life, and how many, how many US dollars would be, up in smoke literally if that thing
Poof.
jumped the fence to my house.
Poof.
and all of my RC stuff, and what would I save? It was and
The-
only because
The best part, Mike, is that I
What's
was saying
that?
the best part is that at least you'd have a great sensational YouTube video.
Oh, yeah,
of,
that's true.
it might go viral of how your house bursting up in flames and all your batteries blowing up and stuff.
Oh
It'd be
yeah, that
fabulous.
Yeah, exactly. I'd have to put. I need to put a sign out
So-
for the firefighters.
So you'd be able to show the insurance guys of the house going up, and you'll have a record of it. So
Yeah. Well, thanks. Yeah. Well, I don't want that. I don't want that to happen. But it definitely. It was funny because my emotional state was, oh, good, they're going to get the fire out, and then it was like, oh, crap. And then it was like, wait a second, and it was just this emotional roller coaster for, that little bit of time until I, saw the planes back in the air. Obviously, they waited a little bit and came back, and the fire has been, down. And I wasn't so worried about, losing anything because of the way the wind was blowing. I have a flagpole out front. It always tells me the direction of the wind, and that's the first thing I do when my wife says, hey, there's another fire. I run out front and say, well, which way is the flag pointing? If it's pointing towards the house, I'm okay. It's blowing away from the house. If it's pointing away from the house, we're in trouble, right? It's coming our way.
right.
And normally where we built, the wind is always usually blowing away from the house. So I've kind of got that going for me. But it just was weird for me. It was the first time that my emotions had gotten the better of me. And I found myself not siding, with the RC world, because this guy was up there, or someone, I don't know who it was, but if there was someone up there, they were doing something that would have caused me personally, where before, that was never the case. And so I can actually understand a little bit now, maybe going through that scenario in my head and thinking about all these things, that, it was one of those that where I was like, oh man, I don't know what the story is, but it's going to be better, for me to kind of get this out and kind of talk about it. So I don't know.
Right.
It's kind of just one of those things.
Well, I think a couple things have to happen to kind of help make the whole scenario better,
Mhm.
right? Because once again, you can't control, like I said, the uninformed, or those people who are out there they're just gonna do things
Mhm.
just to do them.
Mhm.
You have them in all, we have all sorts of rules, but you always have somebody who doesn't listen to the rules, right?
That's true.
So you have to kind of be able to mitigate what they do. So for this instance, if you have a firefighting thing, coming up here in the future, if I was working for the government or whatever, this is what I'd propose,
Right.
is that whenever you set up a zone,
Right.
then you go over and you say to like the military or somebody and go, hey, well, not them, but you just get some of the devices and you go, hey, I want to be able to deny drones to fly in this area. So when you set up your zone of where you're going to be dropping the retardant, you also set up a zone where you're basically shutting down. If you're flying a drone or any RC stuff, it's getting shut down. Anything electronic.
So
between
you're
these
saying
frequencies.
You're saying to do that with like a frequency jammer or something?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
You'd set up a frequency jammer for those areas,
mhm. Yeah.
and you would jam that zone. You put it out in the grid and say, we're jamming this grid. So if stupid people fly in that area, the plane, they can't take them off, or they fall out of the sky, one or the other.
And you wouldn't think, well, I mean, that brings me back to what I just was saying about you. What if the guy flew over there? He's got a 10,000 milliamp battery and he's up at, 400 feet or something. And all of a sudden he flies into this jamming zone and it now creates another fire on the other side of it.
Another fire. Once again, I'm going off the odds that, okay, we jam him. The guy flies and crashes to the ground. once again, it's a risk if it starts another fire within the zone where the fire's raging.
Mm-hmm.
To
Yeah,
me,
that's the point.
it's a wash, right?
Right.
Okay,
Right.
you have fires kind of kicking off all over the place as the things are burning that you're dealing with, but you're trying to get down the main body of where the massive parts of heat's being generated and what's
Sure.
of the main fire.
Yeah.
You could have all the other firefighters that are out there deal with the little stuff that's popping off.
Mm.
Yeah. So, but if you're trying to be the most efficient and keep the bigger assets safe, that seems like that's the smartest thing to do. Go out there, jam the area up tight, and so nothing can fly, even if they want to fly. And then if they lose their plane, hey, people will quickly. Let me put it this way: it's also an educational thing, right? Hey, I took off to go fly, to film that fire. My $3,000 Maverick fell out of the sky and smashed all over the place, right?
And now it's all burned up. Yeah.
Right. And so now I learned that you don't want to fly there because you'll lose your Maverick, right?
Wow, that's interesting.
It's a lesson to be learned by people.
Yeah, interesting that you say that because I will tell you that at work the other day, they were doing some GPS jamming, in our particular area.
Trials.
We were headed into LA, and there were no less than about 10 airliners that all of a sudden, we lost all of our GPS tracking, all of our ADSB, everything.
Yeah.
And, we have to report that. So we spit it all out, and they were like, yeah, we understand there's some jamming, and we're all in different areas. So it was quite a large area. And the military and some other groups, I think, are testing some of that. But it, for us, it affects one system, but not all of our systems. But that is pretty scary.
Right.
But I'd just be interested to know, I guess you would have to jam, the 2.4 gigahertz or something like that, which that's it's a cell phone range. So I don't know necessarily if the cell phone jamming would work, or if it's, how you would, get to the point where you could jam just those frequencies. Because if you just sent out a jammer for just the drones, wouldn't that affect the aircraft that are flying in the area as well? I mean, don't you think? How would you separate that
might.
out?
Well, listen, I'm not in that, I'm not privy to that information.
Come on, Elon
time.
Musk, what's your problem?
But my point is that I'm sure for let's say for the firefighting planes,
right?
I'm sure you could put up some shielding on the aircraft to shield it from that type of jamming.
Yeah.
For the period that it gets jammed,
or maybe put the jammer on the airplane itself.
Yeah. I guess you could do it that way as well.
You could put like a little
but you're bringing up a key thing, right? Like I said, whether the plane carries the jammer or they're able to set up jammers along the area, along the zone of the fire. Either way, I'm sure we could figure out the little niggles between jamming and the problems that jamming causes, and that, like you brought up, the other thing is right there close to the phone band. So now I can't call out, and so hey, there's a big blaze, but I couldn't call out to anybody.
Right.
That's a problem. Hey, my grandfather had a heart attack, and we were trying to call an ambulance, and we couldn't call.
Yeah,
that's a problem.
That is a problem.
But my other thing on top of that is, whether you jam for X amount of time and then you turn off for a minute or two, so if somebody did have to get a phone call out, they could. You could come up with something, right?
Sure.
You jam for 5 minutes, then you turn off for 2, something like that. I don't know.
Well,
it's not too hard to overcome.
Yeah.
But I think that putting up a jammer along those areas or in that zone for when you're doing the aircraft operations, when the plane comes in, you turn on the jammer, plane flies through, it's in and out of there within a minute, and then you can turn off the jammer, so you don't have to have them blasting the whole time. If you want to do that.
Yeah, interesting take on it. So, but I don't know. It's one of those things. I guess my big suggestion is that those people that do listen to our podcast. Be overly cautious. Anywhere you're flying, there's always that risk. We think of it as kind of a hobby, kind of these toys. We go out there, and even though we have a lot of money tied up in some of these, and I think about that every time I'm flying my turbine around. That in my head, I've got, oh, that's a lot of money, but
you don't want me over here with my little my little foamy that I made from the Blue Core foam,
right?
And I'm flying at your altitude, or I'm sitting there putting along, and you come zipping through,
right.
and you ingest my plane, and I'm out $150 of tape and sparkles,
right? Exactly.
and you're out 1,500.
Oh yeah, way more than that. But yeah, I get what you're saying. But for me, it's just I think it kind of gave me a jolt of reality, and kind of got me thinking about the whole thing. And I thought it would be a good topic. And we've kind of crossed the gamut there. Please reach out to us and let us know what you think. You're welcome to jump into our comments section, our YouTube channel, or you can send us an email at theparkflyerpodcast@gmail.com. I'm interested to know what other people are thinking about it and how that works, because, for me, being 100%, straddling the fence of, yes, I know what risks are, with the full scale aviation, and I know what risks there are with the RC, and I can live in that both lives, right? I'm not one of those that just hates one side or the other. And I know there's people on both ends of the spectrum, but I'm dead in the middle. I'm an advocate for both. And I think I'm an advocate for, being safe and not doing stupid stuff. And I talk to people about that, like, okay, don't do stupid stuff in the airplane, in a real airplane, don't do stupid stuff in, RC world. Although, we all occasionally get the youth in us, and we go out there and go, hey, I'll watch this, and something major happens. But I think that we
hold
can,
my beer.
Yeah, I think we can be a little more cognizant. And I appreciate you taking the opportunity to kind of give me your thoughts on it, because I do think it's an important topic, and it did affect me personally. And that was something that, I was struggling with my emotional, roller coaster.
Yeah.
Of,
well, you also have a bad time for disasters. Not that there's a good time for disasters.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is, like, with your first story, with the first fire that started, you jumped on your tractor to go over there and help, which was great. But you went out with flip flops. You were in such a hurry to get out there to help put out the flames. You were in flip flops, so you just you're helping, but you're not helping.
Yeah, well, that wasn't supposed to be public knowledge, but yes, it did. I was in a hurry, and I just had my flip flops on, and I just ran out there.
But you don't have your PPE on, and you're not helping.
Mm-hmm.
You're not helping.
Well, I'm helping.
No,
I will tell you though that when I drove into the area and started clearing some of that stuff, I was shocked at the heat coming off of that area. I mean, my father was a firefighter, and I always went to the fire station and played with the fire trucks and slid down the pole and got all those cool, little kid things. But I never really understood. My dad and I never really talked about what it was like to walk into a burning building, because he just never really discussed it. And it wasn't until, and I've been around campfires. I know that there's heat off of campfires, and don't stick your foot in the campfire, that kind of thing. But this was my first real kind of experience with something that was larger than a campfire, right? This was a whole block long. It was probably about 3 acres that was on fire. And, and the tree, the good news was it was burning fast enough that the big trees weren't on fire. It was moving past those trees at a very fast rate, but just the underbrush was smoldering and had heat to it that I just had never experienced. It was a little on the eerie side. So the fact that I ran over there, I have a landscape rake, and I was just raking around where the fire was to kind of make a fire break. I wasn't really in the fire, at least at first. I kind of drove through there to kind of create a break between them. But yeah, when I got in the middle of that thing, I was just shocked at how hot. So maybe flip-flops weren't the right thing to jump on my tractor and go out there and do it, but my feet weren't sweating, inside shoes. The shoes didn't melt on my feet.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
There was
I'm just saying, between that and the last one was you were just about to go to work.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah. Actually, I did go to work, and then she called me and said, hey, we got a fire. You should come back. And I was like, oh man, I'm already here. I'm like literally taking off. But I was able to, that one I was lucky. I was able to fly out that direction over towards the house, and I could see that it wasn't like
Mhm.
right on the house. But yeah, it was kind of devastating. So, but I think that kind of runs our time. We were out of time, but
Yep.
and I think we lost Shannon. But on behalf of us here at the Park Flyer Podcast, we want to reach out to you and say, be safe. That's the big takeaway from here, and
Yep.
and try to
Be smart.
be smart. Try to be cognizant of everyone around you, and and real quick before we go, I spoke with Scott Berryman the other day on the phone. He was going to the field, and he had met some guys there, and they mentioned at his field that they showed up to fly, and everybody kind of did their own thing, and that really bothered Scott. And Scott was like, how come we can't be more friendly? And so I'm going to put out there too, if you listen to our podcast and you're part of a club or you're just out flying, be one of those guys that is promotes the hobby and talks to your fellow aviators, right? I mean, we all can learn from someone. We can all kind of get new friends in this hobby. So, so be one of those guys that's open and willing to reach a hand out and say, hey, welcome to the club. Thanks for flying with us or whatever. You got a great airplane, whatever it is. But, don't think that you just have to maintain your own little space and that guy's got his space, because it is troublesome when you are new and you show up and, nobody says hello. You kind of
Yeah.
feel like you're ostracized.
Well, that's true. And also, on that same note, from, like you said, from a safety standpoint, how do you establish which way you're flying? If nobody's
true.
talking to each other,
That's true.
and then, Joe Schmo's flying, against the wind or with the wind, and you're like, well, I'm trying to land into the wind. Who's setting up which direction you're flying? Who's setting up? If everybody's afraid to talk to each other,
Right.
little things like that can lead to what we were talking about. Somebody's plane and just in another plane, and tempers flare. So, yep, I agree with you, Mike.
All right. Well, from Michael here in Arizona.
And Jay from the hills of Texas.
And Shannon G and Mesa AZ.
We will see you in 2 weeks.
Let's fly.
You have been listening to the Park Flyer Podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your next visit. Please give our show a star rating and review, and feel free to email us your questions, topics, or suggestions to parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com.